It's John. It's John Gooden. Hi, John. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. First things first. How are you? How's the family? Good Christmas?
Yeah, doing good, thank you. Christmas was good, a little different, a little bit more low key, but at the same time, we made the best of it. So yeah, everything is good, thank you.
I think that's all everyone could do this year. Really, is just make the best of a bad situation. Really, isn't it? It's like hopefully it's the one and only time it's going to be like that. But who knows at the minute? Who knows?
Who knows? One day at a time, right?
Yeah. So what a strange year it's been talking about that. The UFC actually has probably been the only sports brand to continuously have events throughout the year. What do you think made that possible? How do you think Dana White made that the way it is? How has he achieved that?
Well, I think when you consider mixed martial arts as a sport, and in particular the UFC as an organization, they have been swimming upstream for over 20 years. Do you know what I mean? It's always been struggling with being accepted. It's been struggling to get on to the networks that it feels like it deserves to get onto. The whole way, I think, there have been many, many doors that have been slammed in the UFC's face. There have been obstacles that have been put in its way. There have been lobbyists against the sport internationally, not just on their own doorstep. So Dana and his executive team and the extended team at the UFC are used to these struggles. So rather than having an old established guard in place that have been given jobs for the boys and have been in their positions for however long and just taken the big paychecks, that's just not how it's been for the UFC, for mixed martial arts. I think all of us who are involved in the sport have had to have hard, difficult conversations just, to try and set people straight on what this sport actually is. So just at its very core, people have always been trying to push back. And that's made people like Dana very resilient. He was already, a trailblazer. Now you're throwing a red rag to a bull, and he's used to having to react, pivot, come up with new ideas, and he's gotten a team in place because of this over the years, and so that they thrived in this in a way. I mean, thrive is probably. The results have been awesome, but I would imagine that they're all pretty exhausted at the end of 2020.
Well, I mean, for an MMA fan, I'll probably speak for everyone here. It's been something to get us through. Like at least, obviously, there's been a UFC pretty much every weekend of the year so far. So I mean, that's been a bonus in a very negative year.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So for those that don't know, what's your background, John? How did you get into MMA? How did you become where you are now?
Well, I guess it really all stems from being a martial artist, and that's something that I've been doing for most of my life. I first put a gi on in judo when I was about 7, I think. So, on and off, I've done judo, karate, boxing, and then Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and putting it all together in MMA over the years, interspersed with other sports. And I'm not saying that I was consistently doing it, but when it really grabbed me, probably about 15 years ago, something like that, I just fell in love. And I started working in the sport. I was trying to compete and have my own journey, still have my own journey in martial arts, whichever form it takes. But back then I really wanted to kind of test myself. And a few things weren't going my way with injuries and other bits and pieces. And eventually opportunities presented themselves for me to get behind a microphone. It was my own coach's show down in Watford, or here in Watford, at the KO MMA at Watford Coliseum. It was just me by myself with I keep the dictaphone up there. It's only a small little fella. Just a plug-in microphone, and that was it. That was the beginning. As I say, I was in love with the sport already, so I just started to try and find my own voice, and it snowballed out of that.
So is MMA the only sport you've commentated on then, or has there been other sports?
Yeah. I have learned largely everything I know about broadcasting from mixed martial arts. I did spend a little bit of time at the BBC in my early 20s. I did want to be a presenter at one time, and I'd jacked in a job, a well-paid job in a city, and started working for free at the Beeb. But I was doing that in like as a runner and things of that nature. It was on like Watchdog, so it wasn't a particularly sexy role that I was in, like children's TV at the time or youth television, none of that. And I just found myself being pushed more behind the camera, which at the time I wasn't really interested in. So I actually went back to the city after that. But I just thought that was a dream I'd had. I'd given it a go and I'd shelved it, put it to bed, never thought it was really going to happen for me. And I wasn't good enough at the time, if I'm honest. I still don't think that I'm anywhere near as good as many other presenters out there. However, you take advantage of the opportunities that are presented and you grow with the role. But when I had an opportunity in MMA, there weren't a great many people that were doing it, and even probably fewer people that were doing it down in the southeast. Bizarrely, the north was a real stronghold for mixed martial arts, and consequently they had some pretty good voices as well. So it was light down in the southeast, and when the talent pool's not so deep, then you're able to get noticed a bit easier.
Well, I know about that because I'm just down the road from you in Bedfordshire, so I know
right.
the scene. So I know the scene around here pretty well. So no interest in commentating on any other sports then, because you got the best of both worlds now. You got the mic and the shows on BT Sport, etc. So you got everything at the moment. So you must be a happy man.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of stuff behind the camera as well. I produce a lot of the features for the UFC, so I'm kept fairly busy. I went through a phase, maybe not last year, the year before, and maybe the year before that, where I started thinking about working in another sport, and actually started to get a little bit upset that I wasn't, because I felt like I'd broken through in MMA and I was established and thought I was doing good work. It's a very complicated broadcast, and
Of course,
there's a very wide audience. All of these things, I thought I'd tick these boxes, so it was like a new challenge, and I was seeking that. But you know what? I kind of don't know why I was doing that, because I never got back into this to go and be a commentator for BBC on football or whatever else it might have been, at boxing or the Olympics, something like that. I'm certainly not ruling it out, and they would be great challenges, but I got into this to help the betterment of mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
And I never in a million years thought I'd hold the UFC microphone. That's just the honest truth. But it came about, and so I'm happy where I'm at. I think it would be probably good for me in my career if I was to go and try my hand somewhere else, just to see how things work differently, because I'm so used to an American style, actually, that it would be good for me to understand how differently they do things in the UK, which is a bit weird, right? Because the Americans say I'm almost too British, but yet I've not really worked very many British productions.
Yeah, I mean, is there such a thing as too British? I don't think so. I mean,
let me tell you, apparently there is, from experience. But listen, I'm not trying to be anything that I'm not, and I'm proud of who I am, where I'm from, and I sometimes I think what it is we don't realize sometimes how colloquial we can be. We almost have our own language, particularly if you're a Southerner. So I fall into that sometimes, and fans who, we're supposed to be appealing to ESPN audience first and foremost, I guess, and that is in North America. So if they can't follow along, then we do have a problem. But it's not like I'm speaking, Russian. So
yeah,
I can get away with it. But yeah,
so you find you have to sometimes sort of maybe mix up your style a bit, or try and just to try and fit in with the American sort of vibe. And
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm massively changing things. I'm just more aware of the times where I've said certain things and I've had feedback that no one understood what that meant. Like knackered. If you say someone's knackered, I would have thought you could have broken that down fairly easily to understand it's someone who's like very depleted or completely on their ass. but apparently there was just no correlation in like the way that the Americans would understand that. So it works both ways, but obviously they are the key player. I understand that the UFC is an American company as well. I'm respectful of that. So yeah, but at the same time, I look at it as a challenge. You know, I actually have gone out of my way to try and find some American phrases that I think are quite cool that I might be able to use. But at the same time, I also think it'd be nice if they understood a little bit more of these British phrases, and it's a little
course,
nod,
yeah.
isn't it?
Well,
So
you're flying the flag for Britain there, so
yeah, I'll throw a couple in, a little sprinkle every now and then.
yeah, better than nothing. So stand on the British vibe. What's it like working with the legend Dan Hardy?
Yeah, I mean, we're. I'd like to think he'd say the same thing, but I feel like we're a good team. We've worked
Definitely,
together
yeah.
now for a long time, and it made me feel at ease. He made me feel at ease very early on because he let me have my own voice rather than being dismissive of my experience. Because he was over in the States, he didn't hear the work that I was doing with Cage Warriors. He knew nothing about my experience in martial arts and any of those sort of credentials. And yet he was willing just to sit by my side, let me take the lead, and let the relationship form without judgment. So I'm grateful for that, because I think a lot of partnerships in broadcasting end up, you know, on rocky territory sometimes. I know who was Murray Walker used to really want to own that microphone, and you know that some of the people that he would be on a broadcast with, they'd literally be wrestling it off of one another, and I'm happy to say that it's never come down to that. So yeah, I think we're pretty aligned. Again, going back to mixed martial arts as a sport and its perception, and how where we as fans would like to see it in the future, but Dan and I have very similar views on that. So we can work together to help people better understand this sport, to help, you know, to continue to entertain the fans like the UFC product has been doing for such a long time. But we are in a different place in the UK than what they are in North America.
Yeah.
So I think Dan and I realize that, and then we come with a slightly different approach sometimes so that we can cater for that audience as well.
Yeah. So like you said, you've been with the UFC about 7 years now. I think it is 2013, was it, when you joined?
Yeah, I did a couple of bits at the end of 2013. So yeah, going into 2021, yes, yes. I think I think I've done rather well to keep my seat for that amount of time. That's a pretty good effort.
I think you'll be overtaking Rogan soon, mate. Definitely.
I don't know about that.
And you were lucky enough to go out to Fight Island. How was that experience? How was that different to other experiences with the UFC, obviously working wise?
Yeah, well, it's the environment and the way that the world was and is means that it things are just vastly different. And I was staring at, you know, having to go and do another job in March. The London card had got cancelled, and no one had the answers of what we were going to do. You know, the UFC was still trying to figure things out, but you know, I'm not saying I got into this late. I was talking to someone else about this earlier today. I got into this game in my 30s. By that point, I'd already bought the house with the mortgage. You know, we had a baby. We have a child now as well. So you kind of have you live to your means. You know, you try and get yourself in a fairly decent place financially. But you know, I don't earn millions, so without these shows, I need everything that the UFC give me in order to support my family. And it gets to a point where, like, seriously, if the London show hasn't happened, which it didn't, I'm like, okay, I'm already looking like things are a bit sketchy here. Before long, if they're not putting on fights and I can't get a job, I've got to sell my home, you know. So I felt a little bit of fear going into the spring. So when that Fight Island came around, I was so grateful and happy, because I knew it was going to be special. The build-up was immense, so everyone was going to be watching. Dana and the team did such a fantastic job of hyping this up and because there was nothing else going on, as you were saying. It just meant that the world had the attention on the UFC, and I was going to be there and I'd be a part of it. I'd been a silent voice since the February, so it was good to get out there and do what I do. So yeah, there's a lot of relief. I was very grateful, but you're then just back to trying to be the team player and do your job,
Yeah.
and I proved to myself I could turn around an awful lot of work in a short space of time, because of a lot of stuff that went down. So yeah, it was good, very positive experience, and I count my blessings that I was a part of it.
So do you know if you're going to be going back there? Because I know they're going to do a few more events there, aren't they, in the early next year?
Yeah, well, we're always hoping, mate. I just go through. I've had a COVID test to make sure that I'm clean right now. I'm just going to lock myself away, and hopefully I can get on a plane and go and help out again.
Because I mean, that must have been the best location that you've worked at so far. I mean, event-wise.
I don't know about that, because there's no, and listen, well, first and foremost, you're there to work. So yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. As I say, I do more than just the commentary stuff. So I was doing shows for the UFC social team. Dan and I have Inside the Octagon, which on the last Fight Island we had to get done as well. Do desk work, doing the commentary, and I produce the pre-fight like interviews and features as well. So another couple of days per show goes into that. So there's a lot that needed to be done. I don't normally do like 2 or 3 events back to back either. That they would be spread out over 3 or 4 months. So you're condensing a lot of stuff there. And listen, again, I've said how grateful I am for it, but it's not a holiday camp. It's you're away from your family for a month, and that has its own challenges as well. And so the quick answer is probably not the best on the full scale of things, because I've been to Australia maybe 4 times with the UFC, and I love the place. And I've been able to stick around after my work's been done on a couple of different occasions. My wife and I spent 2 weeks. Was it the first time I'd gone to Australia? I think it was, yeah. And we drove from Sydney all the way down to Melbourne, stopping off, as I say, over like a 2-week stretch. And that was one of the best experiences of our lives. And then I've personally stayed out for a few days in Bondi after the last Sydney show that we did. So yeah, that was good. New Zealand was a phenomenal place as well. And we've been to China, and I've been lucky to go out to Vegas as well. So yeah, I've been lucky. You're going to have to go some way to better some of the experiences that I've already had. It was just, and it's a weird time, you can't ever fully relax with everything that's going on.
Yeah, but that's the perks. Obviously, after all the hard work, that's the perks that you get after putting all that in. So, I mean, it's not like it's unjustified. So,
yeah, and for anyone that's ever read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek book, I think it was in that. But something to take from the fact that if you're really into travel or you want to go to certain places, you can earn the money yourself and pay for your own ticket to get there, or you can put yourself in a position where it becomes part of your job to travel. And I've always enjoyed travel. It wasn't like as I've said before, I didn't like really target the UFC and this gig, but a great byproduct has been that I've managed to visit a lot of different places, and some of them I've gotten to spend some decent time in to understand the culture a little bit and experience some of the wonderful things that these places have to offer.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that insight, John. That's all so interesting. I mean, obviously you come across as though you put the work in, so it's all going well. Moving away from the COVID stuff and that, with regards to commentating, has a fighter ever approached or messaged you or DM'd you on Instagram about anything you've said in your fight commentary, maybe about them or about the fight?
Yeah, I've had a lot of positive messages actually, and there's a couple of managers couple of managers have said to me that they particularly like my style because I do focus more on the storytelling aspect of the human side.
Definitely, yeah.
Again, I think it comes back to being a Brit and a misunderstood sport, and also just being like I'm part of a fight team as well, and these aren't just two people that get in a cage and beat each other up. They're individuals with families, ambitions, struggles, and everything else. And it's important. I think it's important to understand all of these things, to know what that person is like, why they are the way that they are, and you might be able to identify with them to then become a fan, or dislike them so that you want them to lose. Either way. In terms of whether a fighter's said anything like negative or whether I've misunderstood something, I mean, that puts the fear of God in me, if I'm honest. I'd like to think that isn't the case. I'm sure there has been. I'm sure there has been a couple of things, but nothing that really. I've never had like someone really pull me up. And also, I think that I certainly err on the side of caution with these things, but it is our job to analyze and talk about things that are slightly uncomfortable for some of these fighters. But really, when you're critiquing technique, unless it's like blatantly terrible, that's not really my job. I can talk about maybe the pacing of the fight, but I'm very careful not to do that because I got guys that have maybe been world champions, fought for a championship belt, or earned their stripes at the very highest level. I'll let them make those judgments. But to be honest, I have had officials have conversations with me about my some of my views and thoughts and comments. Some of them I've apologized back to, and I've learned on the back of those. That was in my earlier days, if I'm honest. And some of them I've had to stand there and say, look, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. You stood that fight up too soon, in my opinion. And when you look at it back, you may agree. I'm entitled to have that opinion. I'm also the voice of the fans at the same time. So if something is like really obvious to me as someone that's watched thousands of fights, then I'm going to say it. Like it's my duty in a way. So not so much fighters, but officials. However, I've grown up in this sport with officials. We are a very small sport, particularly here in the UK and Europe. So I try to build up rather than tear down.
Cool, yeah. So, like you say, you've watched thousands of fights, and called obviously loads as well. Have you got a favourite? Have you got a favourite fight that you've called, or even just watched as a fan?
Yeah, I'm really bad at answering this question, and I have to apologise. I was thinking, I was just doing a review show with Dan, and that Chung Wei Li and Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight was just incredible. Just an incredible fight. We had Figueiredo Moreno, which was a great fight. The fifth round, if you can say the fifth round let it down, you're really being critical. It was a blistering fight. There are certain fighters that I really enjoy watching. The Gustafsson Jones fight always comes to mind. Anderson Silva was someone who I've admired for as long as I can remember since watching this sport. And I actually got the honour and privilege of commentating him versus Michael Bisping in London. Of course, I was a Bisping fan. He's flying the flag for the UK, and I'd had teammates go train with him. So to be there in that main event and be able to be a part of it from the broadcast sense was a real honour. And also just to be that close to the action, and what a dramatic fight it was. So that was good. And of course, I've glanced over one, which is ridiculous, but I've been around the rise of Conor McGregor. I commentated on his first fight at Cage Warriors back in 2010. I think all of his Cage Warriors fights up until when he won both belts. And then I commentated at that what's now infamous event in Dublin where he beat Brandao. So yeah, I've certainly enjoyed some moments, and again, to be around when you see someone as phenomenal as Conor McGregor bless our screens and move the sport along, and to hear my voice being played back over some of these these images, these iconic images, it's a bit bizarre, if I'm honest. It's like, really, was I there? Is this happening? So yeah, very cool.
I mean, like those two fighters, Anderson Silva and Michael Bisping, they're actually my two favourite fighters of all time. And I was lucky enough to be at that fight. So I can't imagine what it was like from your point of view, because I thought it was absolutely unreal. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, bonkers. Yeah, that was some fight. Yeah.
That was all my MMA dreams coming together at once. That like Bisping versus Anderson, I couldn't believe it. You know, and then obviously I did everything I could to get a ticket for that, which I was lucky enough to get. And yeah, what a mate! I'll never forget that night. Put it that way.
Yeah, good.
So obviously we've got a lot of good fighters coming out of the UK at the moment, breaking through. Who do you think will be the main breakout star for the UK next year, 2021? Any names in mind?
What, in the UFC or outside?
Either in the UFC, Cage Warriors. I mean, the Cage Warriors have got a lot coming through. So yeah, either or.
Ooh, guys coming through. Well, Jack Shaw, I think, is a name that people will be familiar with already, but he will be getting a look, I would imagine, this year. And I have to say, I just think there's so much to admire about his career so far, his skill set, and he's got an army of fans behind him in Wales. So I think that he'll get the promotional push if he carries on winning. So definitely one to watch there. Mason Jones will debut in the UFC. Very interested to see what he does. A guy that's sort of going under the radar a little bit, or maybe has done, but certainly won't do for very much longer, is Lerone Murphy. I think that guy is he's proving to be exceeding expectations, and I don't think he's hit his sweet spot anywhere near that. So he's got like big potential. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing him fight. Jake Hadley just won the flyweight belts for Cage Warriors, and I think that he will be. I'd like to think he'll get signed by the UFC this year. I think it's the year where people like him will get signed, just because it's hard to get talent at the moment, and so many fights drop out that guys like him will be, very valuable properties, if you like, athletic properties. So he sells a fight very well. I think he's, got a really strong skill set. So I think he could represent very well. I'm just trying to think who else. We've got quite a few established fighters already. I'll tell you another guy who we unfortunately forget about because of inactivity, and that's Arnold Allen. That guy is a monster. Like, he just needs to get a fight. And not just one. Like, he needs to fight 3 times this year. And when you look at his win streak and the guys that he's faced, like, he could go all the way to the top. There's no denying that. So we need to see him back in there and to get active, because we miss him, and he could be a really big star in this sport. So very much looking forward to that. And as I always do, I have to shout out my teammate Sam Patterson, who is in Brave at the moment, but he is a very exciting fighter. There are people that are just different that I've learned from being in this sport for a long time now, mindset wise, physical abilities, and Sam is different. And he's got everything physically, but his mindset is what sets him apart. And he's just a really nice guy. He's the kind of guy that he'll carry your grandma's groceries across the road. Do you know what I mean? He's that sort of bloke. And I can't really sing his praises high enough. And I don't even know if he's been to decision. The guy can submit you from across the room or knock you out with his go-go gadget arms. So yeah, look out for him.
So sticking with the British theme, obviously Leon Edwards probably been the most affected fighter by COVID, I'd say, in the last year, obviously with dropouts and fight cancellations and stuff. Any inside info on what's going to happen with him? Do you know anything?
Well, I don't know how he hasn't had a breakdown, if I'm honest. Like, I was actually in Birmingham doing producing the feature for the UFC just a couple of weeks ago. and his mindset just blows me away. You know, he's remained positive, and he's very accepting of the situation. It's beyond his control, and quite rightly, like all of the things is whatever he says, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, what's the point in crying over these things? All he can do is keep improving and be ready to go. But I think he's also trying to manage his career and not take opportunities that he doesn't feel that he should do, given his win streak and who he's already fought and what he's already put in. So I sort of respect his take on all of that. But 2020, I don't think has been, in terms of the UFC, and maybe it's because I'm in the UK and so it's a bit closer to my sphere of influence, but I don't know many fighters that have been quite as unlucky as Leon. Yeah. And I do know that when I went to see him in February ahead of the Woodley fight, he thought that, or in his plan, he was going to have made one defense of his welterweight title before we got to the date that we're at now, because he was going to fight Woodley. That was going to give him a title shot. He would have hopefully fought the champion around summertime or the autumn maybe, and then he would have looked to have made a defense in the winter. He had it all mapped out, and it's a very real plan. Like there's,
of course, yeah.
I don't, the odds wouldn't be wildly against him being able to deliver on that, and yet the guy is now without a fight again, and I don't know. I haven't even heard the official line from the UFC that it's not happening. I've not spoken to Leon, but it's been reported in enough places to let you know that it looks like that's the case. So yeah, I just hope that he gets the right fight. I know he's angling for the Masvidal fight. He's always trying to get that. I doubt that will happen, but yeah, we'll see what they put together for him.
I mean, Masvidal's at the point of his...
That's the thing.
Yeah.
If
Masvidal's at the point in his career now where he can kind of pick and choose his opponents a bit more, you know, like I don't think Edwards is a good fight for him. I don't think that's a fight he'd take if he's got any sense, you know, but it's just turning into the new Tony and Khabib, isn't it? I mean, it's like, is it ever going to happen? Is that the one fight that we're never going to see? But
yeah, and the weird thing is, like, we weren't really lusting for this fight until they put it together, and I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I really want to see that fight or whether I just want to see Khamzat fight and Leon fight.
Yeah,
like the fact that they're being put together, there's a lot of upshot for Khamzat if he's able to beat someone like Leon, who's just on a completely different level of experience to anything that Khamzat's seen before in the cage. And for Leon, you know, he can steal some of this thunder and just kind of say, listen, I told you so. And now can I have a top-ranked opponent, please, so that I can go get my title shot? But yeah, I don't know. You know, if they offered him Wonder Boy tomorrow, I'd happily watch Leon fight him. It's just, yeah, I'm at the stage where I'd watch either. I mean, I'd watch either of those guys fight the appropriate competition any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Edwards would fight anyone at the moment just to get in there and have the experience again.
See, I don't know if I'd agree with that. I still think, particularly after he's obviously mapped things out this year, things haven't gone his way. And I'm not saying that he turned down fights, because from conversations that I had with him, the only time he wasn't able to make, I think they did offer him Fight Island, but because of the lockdown that he'd had in Birmingham and the unique situation with his gym, he's got a gym within a gym, or the gym that he's at is within a gym, and the gym, the bigger gym was shut down, so he couldn't train. So why would you go and put everything on the line with no training? So he was trying to be a smart businessman there. So I think if he then was to just go and fight anyone, like people are saying Vicente Luque, like he's almost going back on everything that he had kind of laid out earlier on in 2020 to then go and fight someone like Vicente who's already beaten him. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It's not a good situation for him to be in.
So going on to fights that actually are going to happen in 2021, hopefully, there's quite a few scheduled now. Is there any that you're particularly looking forward to? Is there one standout fight that you can't wait to see?
Ooh, well, of course. I mean, we've got the return of McGregor, which is just epic.
Yeah.
That is epic. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Calvin Cater as well. I'm really pleased to see that he's getting an opportunity like this. Obviously, we're all fans of Holloway. He's just one of the biggest stars in the sport. But uh, Calvin he's earned his way up, like bit like the kind of Poirier line. Everything has been earned, not given. Um, and he's had some interesting. He's had an interesting journey. And well, you spoke to Rob Font, right? I mean, those guys are real and they're
Yeah.
good fun. Like you'd hang out with those guys any day of the week.
Of course. Yeah.
I mentioned that I wanted to go over to New England at some point with my family, and like they got so excited the fact that I would, that someone was going to go to their territory. They're obviously very proud of where they're from, and they're like, if ever you do, then we'd love to like show you around, whatever. I mean, they're just their manager Tyson. Yeah, they're just a really good crew. So um, always good to see people like that get their opportunities, but take nothing away from it. All of that stripped away. Two of the most exciting fighters in their respective divisions, and deadly. So this could be the coming out party for Calvin. He's got some of the best boxing in the whole of the UFC, in my opinion. So let's see how he does against the fluid, beautiful style that Max Holloway brings.
Yeah, I mean that fight's a wet dream, like Poirier and McGregor. I mean, we're all looking forward to that one. But it's just so hard to call because I think Holloway has had some brutal battles. I mean, he's only 29, and the resume he's got is unbelievable. So Cater's got a lot of work ahead of him, but we'll see.
But that's like, was it not 19 when we first saw Holloway?
I think he made his debut at 19. Yeah,
and it wasn't it against Dustin Poirier. You're like, I mean, that's ridiculous, right? And now he's been through everyone, like everyone. So yeah, he's had a long career already, which will give him a lot of wisdom. And but yeah, there's a lot of miles there, but you don't know. Some of these guys have been in a gym doing boxing, and that having the way you train also dictates your longevity in this sport. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Max brings a lot of weapons into the octagon, so that's going to be a fun fight.
Cool. Yeah. So I won't take up too much more of your time, John. I know you must be busy. Just for fun, just lastly for fun, give us a John Gooden exclusive, maybe something that we don't know about you, or a secret hobby, maybe something like that.
A secret hobby. What is something that you guys don't know about me? I used to be. Well, yeah. Did I ever get that way? I used to be a top squash player. Did you know that?
No, I never knew that. No.
There you go. There's one.
I can't say squash has ever been calling me, but
yeah, no, it's not for everyone. I'm a big motorhead as well. Like I love my cars. You spoke earlier about whether I would like to do anything outside of fight sports. Like if I hadn't have found mixed martial arts, I genuinely believe that I would be doing something to do with cars, whether it would be on the business side or I did try and actually qualify to race for Renault Clio, actually, like touring cars many years ago. And I got pretty close, but it was a scholarship. I didn't make it. I haven't done an awful lot of racing in between, but I have got a real thirst for the pedal. And yeah, I'd like to do some stuff there. I've been eyeing up these buggies, these quads, the rage quads, the razor things. Oh my god, they're frightening. Like
the bar thing, isn't it? It's like the desert races and stuff.
Yeah, I'll take me some of that. Like I do. I want to get involved. I want to try and find a place near where I live where I can, get out and about on one of those and just have some fun. I haven't quite got the money to invest in one myself, but yeah.
I'm struggling to think the sort of terrain around here where we'd be able to do that. I mean, I've got the Dunstable Downs near me, but I don't think that would.
That wouldn't go down well, where everyone's trying to fly their kite and you come tearing over the hill.
Exactly. Yeah.
Some sort of 1,000cc race buggy.
You get enough trouble with cyclists. Yeah, so I can imagine that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, there's a couple of things.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for your time, John. I really appreciate that.
No worries.
And, it'd be great to catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Cool.
All the
Thank
best.
you, John. Thank you,
Cheers.
John. I'll just try and find this. Try and stop it. I can never. I'm so bad at this. It always disappears. All right, John. Well, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. All the best for 2021.
And you. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.